I was trying to get a book published for 15 years. And so you back up, I mean, I wound up, I've written like 4 different things, one fiction, which we started talking about, and then 3 or 4 nonfiction, and it's like, if you'll pardon an old Southern expression, you know, it's like making mud pies.
Right.
You get the mud, the consistency that you wanted, you've got your project the way that you think it will look good to an agent or a publisher. You throw the mud on the fence.
It takes over a decade for a lot of people to get a book published.
So we think the next most important thing after your passion is to figure out whether your idea has an audience out there. You have to figure out, are there a lot of people interested in your idea? And if there are, how are you going to get your book into their heads, into their hands, and into their hearts? So that part, there's 3 basic components that we think are essential to being successful in the book world. Research, so finding out where your audience is. Networking, talking to other writers who have agents, talking to other writers who've been successful, being in writing groups, meeting other people. We were in a writing group, I was in a writing group with a man called Khaled Hosseini, who wrote The Kite Runner. Well, now The Kite Runner's become one of the most successful pieces of fiction ever. When I was in the book group with him, he didn't even have a and met other writers. So that's research, networking, and then writing. We have so many people who come up to us and they say, oh, I have a great idea. I'm going to be on Oprah. It's such a great idea. And then they tell us the idea, and oftentimes it is a good idea, and we say, well, give us a chapter. Oh, well, I haven't written it yet, but...
It's just like you say when people say, oh, well, I could write a novel.
Yes.
Could is different than did.
You're exactly right. I mean, the idea is there, but the follow through.
That's right.
See, that's the hard part. And people don't realize, unless they sit down and really start to put the ideas down somewhere.
Right.
For me, I really like to use a yellow pad. There's something about the flow from the head to the hand to the paper that I find interesting. Now, the computer, I'm one of those fiction writers that sees the story, it flows in my head. It's like watching a movie. That's my process, and it just happens. And then you rewind it when it doesn't work, and you do the scene again. But there's something about that flow for me. I guess it's because I'm a kinesthetic person that's important.
Right. Well, we actually recommend that you get a special book and a special pen for every project.
Why not?
Just because of exactly what you're saying. It gives, you know, it somehow inspires creative flow when you have something that's dedicated to your project.
And for you, it's that yellow pad that makes it flow.
Yeah.
And I sat on a plane, I was writing a death scene in this novel, and I was killing one of my characters, and it was excruciatingly painful emotionally. And I had these tears, you know, kind of quietly running down my eyes, and I'm writing this stuff. So there's a person sitting next to me, and they said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Oh, I'm just killing one of my characters." They didn't talk to me for the rest of the flight. I mean, you know, it's one of those things. Right. Something comes into my head that is a thread of what you said, David. Is this really all about marketing now, and how marketable is my idea?
Well, we just were talking to someone at a workshop we did yesterday. They had gotten their manuscript to a publisher, a very good publisher, and the editor and one of the chief publishers loved the book. Then it got sent over to the sales department, and the sales department said, we don't know how to sell the book, and that killed the deal. It's really sad that sales departments are now, in many ways, dictating what gets published and what doesn't get published, whether they think they can sell the book or not.
And the new buzzword in publishing is platform. What's your platform? So, you know, for you, having a television show, that's a fabulous,
it's a fantastic platform. Yes,
but for many people, they say, you know, well, you know, I don't have a public, I'm not a public speaker, I don't teach, etc. So how do you get the word out? Now, fortunately, there are ways marketing and getting the word out via emails. So there's lots and lots of ways to be creative in marketing your book, but you still really have to be out there pushing it yourself.
Would those ways be detailed in, oh, I don't know, your book?
Surprisingly,
Yes, maybe
they
they are.
Many, many of them. In fact, we have 2 very long chapters just on.
We've got to throw something out, again, building on something that you said, David, in a piece of a conversation that we had before the camera came on. We were talking about Lord Vishnu's love handles and about Still River, and both of those authors came out of the SMU Creative Writing School. They had formed a book group. Both of them were in the same book group.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of networking and background kind of thing I should do for a book?
Yes, absolutely. We advocate finding the community of writers where you live, going out and talking to them. And if you're not a social person, you can find this online. But for example, here in the greater Dallas area, I think SMU would be a fantastic place to start your research. Find out where the writers are. Take a class there. Take an adult education class somewhere. It's just really important, if you want to be a professional writer, to find professional writers and find people who want to be professional writers and start building your community. And also, it's shocking how many people want to write books who don't read books in their area. If you're writing a romance novel, read all the romance novels you can find, get your hands on. If you're doing a how-to book, go into the how-to section and start reading those books and finding out what works and what doesn't.
The formula's there.
Right,
is.
exactly.
I mean, it's right there in front of you.
Yes.
Barbara Cartland, A, B, C, D, E. There she is.
Right,
I mean,
right.
every one of her books follows the same formula. You know, plug in different characters, etc. And we're running out of time.
Okay.
And I do want to hit self-publishing.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk about that, I mean, fairly quickly.
Okay, so there are good reasons to self-publish and there are bad reasons to self-publish. So good reasons to self-publish are you want to have control over every piece of the process, how the book looks, how it's edited, et cetera, et cetera. You want to take the bad pieces?
Yes. The problem
You've done
with-
this before.
Yes, we have.
Unfortunately, there's a kind of an onus on self-publishing. There's a prejudice against it. Barnes & Noble, you have a hard time getting your book in there. And if you're not the sort of personality who can go into a bookstore and say, hi, here I am, buy my book, it's going to be very difficult for you to get your book out to the public. You have to have a distribution. You'll have to have your books in your living room and put them into mailers and send them out. It's a very arduous process. But the other good thing about self-publishing is you get to keep all the money, which is great.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it
is. Yes.
All right, we've got about minute and a half.
Okay.
If you could look the wannabes in the eye
Okay.
who are sitting here watching our show,
Yeah.
what advice would you give them in about 30 seconds each?
Okay, so back to these principles of researching, networking, and writing. So for example, as a literary agent, I get query letters all the time for science fiction. It says on our website, in every agent guide, et cetera, that I don't do science fiction, and yet people send that to me anyway. If you do your research at every stage of the process, you will put yourself into the top 1% of writers, which means that you give yourself an excellent chance of getting published.
For me, I would say do a little bit on your book every single day, no matter what it is. We have a friend who, our friend has a crazy life. She's got kids, she's got, like we all have crazy lives. But even if it's just rearranging her titles, even if it's just doing a grammar check, every single day she does something to make her book better. And I think if every single day you work on your book just a little bit if you can, you'll be amazed how quickly these additions will make your book into something beautiful and sellable.
Touch the project.
Yeah.
And Writer's Market. Is that a good resource still for
Yeah,
people
sure.
to use?
It is a good
Definitely.
resource. And another one is Jeff Herman's Guide to Book Publishers, Editors, and Literary Agents.
And it's okay for me as a would-be writer to send an agent a query letter with perhaps a sample manuscript or at least a book proposal.
We encourage just query letter first, and then if the agent is interested, to give what they request exactly.
Because if you don't do science fiction and I send you a query letter about science fiction, then I've wasted your time and my
That's
time
right.
by
That's
sending
exactly
you manuscripts. Yeah, okay. You two are just wonderful. The book is
Thank you.
terrific.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
My absolute pleasure to talk with you
It
and
was
meet you
great
both.
to talk to you too.
Thanks.
Are you a wannabe author? Well, if you don't pick up a copy of Putting Your Passion into Print, you'll be sorry. These two people have done an excellent job, and it's a good read, and it's a lot of good information. Don't go away. We'll be back with more.